Hi, I'm Doyle Bishop with Tulsa Heaters Midstream. On this channel, you can expect to hear about all things related to process heating, but sometimes the topics aren't technical, but most of the time they are, so thanks for joining. Hi, I'm Doyle Bishop with Tulsa Heaters Midstream. Today, I want to talk to you about a technical topic, very riveting for sure. So it's about, hey, how do I contain the heat? Or how do I protect the metal on my heater? So in a fired heater, obviously there's fire, and where there's fire, there's high temperatures. And a typical temperature maximum in a heater is in the 2,000 to 2,500 degrees. So that's more like the center of the flame. As you get further and further away from the flame, it's cooler. So a typical temperature on the wall of a heater away from the flame might be 1,500 degrees. That's fairly typical. It could range anywhere from 1,300 to 1,600 in a heater in a midstream application. So there's a material called refractory, and refractory actually, when you say that, most people think of this. You know, this refractory, it's heavy, and actually this is refractory as well, believe it or not. So let's talk about both of these. So obviously, both of them have to have the ability to withstand 1,500, 1,600 degrees. But really, you want it to be able to withstand something a lot higher, just for safety reasons and just so you're not right there on the cusp of having something melt. So typical refractory like this is called blanket refractory or ceramic fiber. It is rated for the low 2000s, like 2,200 degrees F. Hard refractory like this, it can go up to 3,000 degrees, depending on the chemistry of the refractory. So it can go up much higher than ceramic fiber can go to. In the midstream, you never need anything more than a blanket rating is fine. So what's the difference? Why would you pick one over the other? Well, you know, as most things are driven, refractory is driven by cost. And so if you look at, hey, what's the cost of hard refractory like this versus blanket refractory, this is much lighter, and believe it or not, it's much cheaper. And there's some great things about blanket refractory, besides it being cheaper. One is it heats, you can heat up really fast. You can heat your furnace up, bring it online, get up to temperature as fast as you want to go. You're not going to thermally shock blanket refractory. You can't thermally shock it, meaning I can't damage it by heating up too fast. It's obviously very flexible. It doesn't, the expansion, contraction is not going to hurt it as it heats up. Whereas hard refractory, this stuff, it absorbs moisture. Even though maybe you can't see it, there's moisture inside of it. And if you heat this up too fast, the moisture that's inside of it expands rapidly and you can crack it. And so with hard refractory, you got to go a lot slower. The nice thing about this, though, there's some attributes about hard refractory that I really like. One is I can have flue gas velocities along the face of this really, really high. I'm never going to shred this, rip it up. I can put gases along the face of this at 150 feet a second, and it's happy. Nothing happens to it. If I design a heater or if I fire a burner really hard and I have gas 150 feet a second across this, it's going to shred it. So you have to be careful in your velocities, high velocity areas, in making sure that you're not going to exceed a velocity that could rip this up. Typically, in the 70 to 80 feet a second, less than that, you're going to be okay. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but also how you lay this out relative to the gas flow makes a difference. You see there's a joint here because you have to overlap the joints. Well, obviously, if the gases are flowing this way, it would get underneath that joint and tend to pull it off. So you want to orient your burner and your flue gas flow such that the gases would flow this way, so when you overlap your joint, it's not trying to rip that joint apart. The other thing about ceramic fiber are the anchors. If there was a weakness to ceramic fiber, it's going to be in the anchors. The anchors are high temperature stainless steel or Inconel, but you can't get much above about 1800 degrees or so, maybe 2000 before these guys start failing. Now, I said earlier that typically you're 1600 degrees on the surface, so typically these are fine. Sometimes flames get a little bit long. If they get long and they hit a wall that has these guys and the gas temperatures are 2000, these anchors, actually the keepers themselves will fail, pop off, and you can have some refractory loss. Hard refractory, you see there's no visible anchors, but when you apply it, there's anchors actually on the wall, but they're embedded inside of it. So you have no anchor exposure. So hard refractory can take really high temperatures, really high velocities, and survive, but it doesn't like fast heat up. So that pretty much sums up refractory, and we would be happy to answer any questions you might have beyond what I've talked about. Hey, thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like or subscribe to get more information about process heating and Tulsa Heaters Midstream.